and welcome to my channel. My name is Melissa, but if you are one of my noble subscribers and you've been following along, then you already know that you can call me Missy. It is Ren Fair season, and I am feeling that feminine urge to don plate armor, strut down a dusty road, and eat turkey legs, one out of each hand, which is, of course, the best way to show off the guns. Honestly, though, I've been working out pretty consistently. Can we see definition? Probably not. Okay. I do not own plate armor, but I am praying to the craft gods that I will be able to make this stupid idea work. And I don't really bake. These were mostly used for pizza, and it was mostly made by my husband. So while I am retiring these cookie sheets as cookie sheets, I hope to be employing them as plate armor. I don't know what kind of metal cookie sheets are made out of. What metal are cookie sheets made of? Originally made of sheet iron, today's baking trays are made from either aluminum or sheet steel that has been enameled or coated with PFAs. Whatever they're made out of, it's metal, and I'm gonna turn them into armor. So let's get cooking. And by cooking, I mean baking. And by baking, I mean, here we go. I think you can generally tell how nervous I am about a project by looking at how cheap the materials are that I plan to use for a particular project. I did in fact purchase a sheet of weldable steel from the hardware store, but then when I was retiring these pans, I was like, ooh, I'm more likely to not worry about messing up with those because they're going in the trash anyways, than with this thing that I actually spent money on. It just scares me. But before I get into the metal, I'm gonna make the thing out of cardboard. I think cardboard will most closely mimic the stiffness of the metal. So I hope that this works out for me. I also probably should draw a sketch of what I have in mind. This armor is really meant to be ornamental for sure. And so I've been really going back and forth as to how much I want this armor to resemble armor and how much I want it to resemble metal bikini and or metal corset. And I think I'm gonna go somewhere in between these. Part of me loves a metal bikini. Part of me loves a metal corset. Part of me loves the androgyny of just the regular plate armor. Part of me loves a cod piece too. I'm not getting into that. We're gonna draw a quick idea of what I've had going on in my noggin. I think, how would you do a princess seam? We're gonna do something like this, and then a little something there like that, and then maybe something like this. Yeah, something like this, and then like that. That's region. There's a bit of a sleeper view, and then the bottom. Something like that. With a, and then like that. I probably don't have enough metal to make this full thing. I want to at least make the bust portion and the under bust portion. I would love like a hip moment that goes down into like a full skirt moment. Ooh, I love that. But I don't think I have enough metal for this time around. Additionally, I don't know that this is going to have a back to it. My first idea for how I would make all of this fit together was to cut the metal out and then rivet it onto a leather version of the garment, and then I could wear that and the leather would protect me from any sharp edges, which hopefully I don't leave sharp edges. I've never done this before. So variables are just so unknown. The leather that I will be using will be reclaimed leather that I got off of couches. I have found genuine leather couches on the sides of, oh, there's a spider in the window. Sorry, it just startled me because it like went whoop. Oh, it's just a little guy. He's just a little guy. I don't like spiders. The way they move freaks me out. I'm learning that they can be buddies. Some of them can be buddies, not all of them. I have found leather couches that are being given away for free or tossed out on the side of the road and harvested leather from them. I've done this several times. It's a great way to get genuine leather without having to spend any money. This has suited all of my leather needs. I think that's it. I'm going to go get my cardboard. There he is. He went back down to the hole. There he goes. He's looking at us now. My monkey brain says I am not safe. But he's one of the fuzzy guys that are kind of cute, actually.
I recently found this pattern at a thrift store, and I thought I would use it for this project because it kind of has the seams that I'm looking for. Of course, I'm gonna have to alter it, but it gives me a jumping off point. And as you can see, I got lucky and the pattern had never been cut out before. Yay, that means I get to do it. Oh, I hate cutting out patterns. But at least that means that I can be confident that my thrifted pattern is going to have all of the pieces and also the size that I need. If you're new here, I have a big ol' roll of butcher paper and it has been infinitely useful. Honestly, I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out of that. I guess I'll have to buy another roll of butcher paper, but I bought the roll that I bought at the thrift store, so I don't know where you would go to find more butcher paper. Probably like a school supply website. Or maybe like a butcher supply website, although I don't know if this is like actual butcher paper because it is very much the same stuff that would be in like your typical school copy room. Anyways, since I've never used this pattern before, I decided that the paper would be my sort of mock-up, and I do need to alter the pattern, so it'll be a good jumping off point for that. For the purposes of this project, I would only be making the front of the armor out of metal and the back would just be that leather, so that's all I concern myself with at this point. I didn't get any more spider footage, but I did end up seeing that spider again, and I was able to grab it with a little bit of Tupperware and take it outside to my garden. I do need more insect eaters to help me out with the pests back there. But yeah, catching and releasing a spider is something that would have been absolutely unheard of for me in the past. I remember one time I was in my bathroom and I saw one and I screamed at the top of my lungs and jumped up on the counter, and then my dad came down and he was like, "What's wrong?" Because he thought I was like getting murdered. And it was just a spider and he was not amused. But he did notice how distressed I was and he helped me out. He's a good dad. If I'm particularly surprised by the presence of an arachnid, I will still react somewhat like that now, but it really has to startle me and generally needs to be very close to my body to do that.
Here's what I have so far. As a mock-up, it functions. Here's how it looks. Now, because these pieces are so rigid, some of the boob shaping aspects of it are not functioning as they should. When it comes to the metal, I might be able to hammer it into shape. And in fact, I did buy a coconut this week at the grocery store. And when my son was like, "I don't like coconut," I was like, "Fine, it's not for you." But I didn't want to tell him what it was for because he'd probably think I was crazy. He probably knows I'm crazy. He's my kid. What I do not know is if I'm going to have enough cookie sheet to do this much. Day 2. First of all, my child drew all of the Minecraft armor on my board, and I just want to show you because I'm a proud mama. Second thing, after getting all of these pattern pieces put together last night, I laid them out on my cookie sheets and they will not fit. I do not have enough sheet for my project. So I decided to go out today to the thrift store and get some more sheets from the thrift store. These were $4 each, but they feel quite sturdy. In fact, I feel like they feel a little more sturdy than my other cookie sheets. And then there's this one, which is almost more platter-like. They've got like a little bitty design to them, but they're definitely quite a bit thicker. This puts a whole nother spin on making clothes out of thrift store sheets, which I've also done. Also last night, I realized that the segmentation that I did with the armor was to help give it some mobility, but the way that I had just braided it all together meant that it wouldn't have any of that flexibility. So new plan, strips of leather, like the top section will be riveted to each other. The middle section will be riveted to each other, and the bottom section will be riveted to each other. But then the top section, the bottom section, and the middle section will be riveted instead to strips of leather. Because leather is a lot weaker when it's in thinner strips, and my couch leather is not super thick, I decided to also go ahead and pick up some belts from the thrift store. So I have these 2 belts that I picked up. They were also $3.99 each. This is getting to be a lot more expensive than I had originally thought that it would be. And I'm doing the cheap version. I think that's everything. Let's go ahead and get to work. I'm going to start cutting these out, which means I think I need to start tracing them onto the cookie sheets using Sharpie. So I should do that. I did give myself a little bit of a fume headache last night. Got a little high on Sharpie fumes, just tracing out those pattern pieces. You know what? Actually, it's nice and sunny. I think I'm gonna go outside and do this.
I did end up going outside, and this was all the footage that I got out there. So sorry, but it was boring just tracing stuff anyways. Hello?
Are you the detective?
I am. Come on in. So, what can I do for you?
Well, my wife, she mysteriously disappeared.
Say no more? I'm on the case. Actually, please tell me more. I don't know where to start with this.
Right, well, I came home from work the other day to my wife and sat down and put my feet up. I was jonesing for some cookies, and I asked her to make me some. You know, I'm really jonesing for some cookies. Be a dear and make me some.
Yes, dear.
So she goes into the kitchen, and I'm reading in the living room. Started hearing this infernal racket.
What did you do?
Well, nothing. I don't know how to make cookies. How am I to know what they sound like?
And what did they sound like?
Well, you know, power tools and clanging metal, pounding, that sort of thing, you know.
Go on.
I got real immersed in my book and looked up from my book and realized that it was past supper time. Went into the kitchen and my wife and cookies are gone. Where are my cookies? But I found these.
Can I take a look at those?
Sure.
Take a closer look at these. Very curious. If I didn't know any better, well, it just so happens I have some experience with textiles.
Textiles. Are you a tailor, a seamstress, or a detective?
I used to be a seamstress, but I gave it up. I'm not a seamstress anymore, I'm a detective. But I do have some experience with this, and it does look like, well, what's left over after you cut out a pattern for clothing or something. It doesn't make any sense.
Day 2 was not very productive, but I was able to get these baking sheets and get my patterns all drawn onto there. So actually, maybe it was very productive. I don't know. Today, I ran to the hardware store and picked up one more supply, that being these washers, because I'm still feeling paranoid about attaching this metal to the leather. I'm worried that the rivets will want to pull through the leather, so I can distribute the pressure or the pull onto the leather with the washers. I got these washers. They're shaped a little bit like donuts on one side, and then they've got this concave element to them. I'm not entirely sure what these rivets look like when they are all ballooned out on the inside. And so I thought that if they end up being rough, that this particular design would mean that the rough bits are stuck on the inside of the donut, and then makes it so that they don't rub too much and try and damage my clothing. I don't have enough of these washers for all of the rivets that I'm going to use, I don't think. So these will mostly just be on the ones up against the leather. So I don't know how useful they're going to be. Ultimately, I don't know anything. That's the moral of this segment. So today, I'm just going to get cracking on cutting out these pattern pieces from these cookie sheets. Then I'll be able to sand them down and hopefully treat the edges so they don't end up being too sharp. One thing I noticed about the cookie sheets is that these two silvery sheets were not magnetic. So I think that that probably means that they are aluminum. The other two cookie sheets that were my old cookie sheets were magnetic. So I think that means that those were made out of steel. In any case, they're two different types of metal, but it might mean that the colors of the metal are mismatched. So I tried to make sure that all of the top pieces were made in my old cookie sheet metal, and all the other pieces are with this aluminum sheet. All right, I need to quit stalling. Let's get into it.
I initially tried using a nail to tap little dents into the metal to make sure that my holes ended up being exactly where I needed them to be, but the cookie sheets were just kind of bouncing with it and not really getting any kind of dent. So I just kind of did my best with the drill and made all of the holes. My thought process was that I thought that it would be easier to drill the holes before cutting them out. But this kind of led to other problems, as you'll see.
Now I have all of my holes drilled. That's what she said. I need to put on my gloves, which I don't like, but I like having hands more than I dislike wearing gloves, so here they go. And I have my jigsaw with a blade loaded up, labeled thick metal. I don't know if this qualifies as thick metal for jigsaw purposes, so we'll see how this works. Let's go.
As it turns out, it does not qualify as thick metal, but I also had a blade specifically for thin metal, so I ended up changing out my blade for that one. Even still, when I got to the end of cutting this particular metal, the jigsaw did not want to cut through the remaining little corner. I think it was mostly because this particular metal just wants to move too much with the vibrations of the saw. And so I ended up having to make the last little bit of the cuts with my Dremel, which I also used to clean up some of my mistakes. But isn't that just so festive? I love the sparks. That's another interesting thing. This steel made sparks, but the other metal did not. Do you ever feel like a cookie sheet cut into a piece, waiting to decease? Do you know that there's still a chance for you? 'Cause there's a plan for you. 'Cause baby, you're a firework. What? Katy Perry? No, it's not fireworks. No, I'm just smoothing the edges with my Dremel. Okay, but I do love watching the sparks. They're real pretty.
Welcome to another day. Today is a day where we get to see just how bad my chaos process absolutely destroys my room. I have these top pieces cut out, ready to put together. All I need to do is sand down these pieces and assemble these top pieces, and I will have a hunk of boob armor. I also still need to cut out all of the other pieces, but I wanted to see that these top pieces would fit first, because if they don't, then this project is pretty much kaput. I need to get sanding and assembling, and hopefully we'll get to see if this is going to even work today.
So yeah, this day was basically just a continuation of what you saw me doing the day before. I had to Dremel around each of the holes because on the side where the drill went through, it was really rough right around the holes. Rough enough to just tear up my sandpaper, so it was better just to use the Dremel for that. Part of assembling the top was making sure that I had my little strap pieces attached to the front. So I had to cut some leather for that, and my scissors were not up to the job. So I did have to use a razor blade for that. But yeah, I just marked out the shape that I wanted with my pencil and then cut it out using a razor blade and repeated that for the other side. I did not have a burnishing tool for the edges of this leather, so I just kind of rubbed it against things that were around me, and it kind of worked. I then used my leather punch to go ahead and punch a little hole in the leather. I couldn't use it through the metal, but it did help me to figure out where I needed the hole to be, and then I would take it off and then punch it more thoroughly.
It's another day to work on this project. I didn't get a whole ton done yesterday, and here's where I ended up. I wasn't sure how I was going to do the straps, and I ended up deciding that I wanted to do a strap that ended like a stays strap situation. Say that 5 times fast. Stays strap situation, stays strap situation, stays strap. There you go. So I'm going to have a little hole in the top of this, and then my other strap is going to come down, and then I'll have some kind of string or ribbon to tie the straps together. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm running into a snag. Here is the snag. This piece is on the long side of things, this piece here. And this piece is on the short side, and my holes are not lining up anymore. I am kind of thinking that possibly I'll be able to solve this problem by using the coconut that I purchased for this project and trying to shape it over the coconut a little bit so that it rounds out the way it's supposed to. But I'm partly thinking that I might just need to go back and redo the holes and cut off the end, and that's what I'll need to do to fix it. I don't want to add more holes to it because I'm a little worried as it is that the holes are too close to the edge. If I add more holes, they'll be too close to each other. Maybe not though. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to keep working on it, and hopefully I'll figure it out as I go. So let's get to work.
Time to try the coconuts. I used a towel and a dead blow hammer to set up my coconuts in an attempt to shape things. But I ultimately had to give up on the coconut idea. Sorry, Harry Belafonte. I'm sure coconuts are very useful, just not for this. Instead, I did just end up re-drilling some holes. I think part of the problem with the coconut was that this metal was a little bit too willing to spring back into shape. So if I had used some kind of concave form, it might have worked better. But just for the shaping purposes, either way, the holes would not have lined up. That didn't stop me for giving it just one more try. I mean, coconuts are kind of expensive. And who knows, maybe it did help a little bit.
I'm absolutely tickled. I have made a tin can for bosom preserves. It's boob shaped, roughly. I feel like this was the biggest hurdle, trying to make metal be boob shaped. I don't know what I'm doing here, and I feel like I did it. So it is not super symmetrical. I'll look down and tell you that for sure. Also, I'm sweating so much. I do still need to cut out all the other pieces. I'm not sure I caught it on camera, but I did realize at some point that these holes that I had drilled were too small. So I'm going to re-drill all of these other holes so that they're going to be big enough before I start cutting out the pieces. And then we'll go from there. Yee! Moving on.
After fixing the problems with the diameters of my holes, I was ready to sand the aluminum pieces. This included fixing the edges and rounding out the corners, and this was really all I needed to keep the metal from being too sharp to wear. I then went in with my sandpaper, which I noticed changed the color of the metal quite a bit. Because the sandpaper was quite coarse, it made it very dull. So I grabbed a really fine grit sandpaper that I could use with some water. And I just used my fingertips to dab a little water onto the metal before sanding it down, and this really helped to improve the image or the appearance of my metal bits. So while it's not a perfect match with the steel parts of the armor, it still works well enough together. I don't think I got very good footage before this point of what the rivets looked like, so here you can see that basically I just set them up with the flat end on the anvil side, except for this one, which I messed up on. But I just used the little tools that this rivet set came with, and it functioned exactly how I needed it to. There were a few more places where the holes didn't line up perfectly, so I did have to go in and re-drill some of those. But as you can see, things were coming together. Here I invite you to see what few have seen, the ugly insides of my armor. You can tell that I wasn't as worried about sanding the inside of the top bits because it still has a lot of that coating on it. I only riveted the top rivet to my leather because the leather is quite stiff. I thought this would allow for a bit more movement, but this meant that I needed to be a bit more careful when adding those rivets, because if I pounded the rivet in while it was stacked, it would mar the metal that was beneath it.
The amount of joy that this brings me, I cannot. I just put it on over my apron. I'm not going to do it again right now because we want to wait for the reveal, but oh my gosh, it is leagues from even being well done. Like, look at that messy seam. Look at it. I have metal armor. Oh my goodness. I can't. Kill me now. I want to die this happy. I do have a little ways yet to go before it becomes wearable, but we are well on our way. I do need to make an entire back and straps that go on it, but I can't even. It's so good. Okay, I need to clean up some of this garbage so that I can get around to actually making the back pieces so that I can wear this thing because I want to wear it. I want to wear it so bad. Let's do this.
Thank you for coming by, sir. Come on in. Oh, I found your wife.
Oh, okay. Where is she? Is she all right?
I think you'd better have a seat. You see, sir, your wife has been stepping out on you.
What?
Have a seat, there's more. She has another family of sorts. Have a seat, there's more. Another sort of family, how to explain? Have you heard of LARP? L-A-R-P?
No. Is that some sort of secret organization?
You see, your wife has been living a double life. When she's at home with you, she's your devoted and loving wife. But when she meets up with these people, she becomes another person. A fantasy kind of person. She lives this fantasy with these other people. Not in any untoward kind of way, but they just go out into the woods and act like they're killing goblins and things, you see? Now, the other night, when you asked her to make cookies, she got an idea and she ran off to her LARP buddies. Well, she's been camping for 3 days.
Camping? So what do I do? How do I get her back?
I was hoping you'd ask that. You fight for her.
What's this?
I did not end up getting anything else done yesterday, so today is the day. Today is the day, and hopefully I can get it all done today, that I make the back side of this piece. I've got these 2 pattern pieces that are designed to be the back of the pattern that I had used to make the front. And so I'm going to cut these out. I will attach the leather to the sides and then add grommets to the back center so that it can lace up, sort of like a gown bodice or a corset top or something like that. I don't know, whatever. That is all. And we need to get to work.
I'm basically able to treat my leather the same way that I would any other fabric. Sometimes I would pin my pattern pieces to fabric, but I usually do what you saw me do there, which was just trace it with some chalk and then cut it out. But it's not a good idea to use pins to cut out pattern pieces from leather because the holes will just stay there, whereas usually with fabric, if it makes a little bit more of a hole, the fibers of the fabric will just kind of close back up behind the pin. After getting all of my pieces cut out, I was ready to sew them together. Rather than the usual method of sewing it while the right sides are butted up against each other, I opted to overlap the bits of fabric and then sew the seam twice, once on either side of the leather ends. I used masking tape to hold things in place, and this worked quite well. Oh, and that little strip of like whitish fabric on the inside is just a little strip of twill tape. I just used that to help reinforce that seam. And if I recall correctly, I also added a little bit of zip tie inside of that twill tape by way of just boning it a little bit. When I was ready to attach the metal to the leather, I marked out where I would need to put my more holes for more rivets, and this time I used a screw to pound some divots into the metal so the drill wouldn't stray while starting the holes, and this actually worked this time. I don't know whether it's because the screw was a lot more sturdy than the nail I previously tried to use, or if it was because it was flat now. In any case, it worked. When the holes were prepared in the metal, I used masking tape again to line everything up and make sure it stayed put while I marked out the holes with my hole punch. I had the leather doubled up on the inside to make it a little more sturdy, and then I also did use the washers to really help anchor everything into place. After metal and leather were joined in holy matrimony, all I had to do was add the center grommets to the back so that I could take it on and put it off, or put it on and take it off, and then we're done.
She is done. I am.
As you just saw, I messed with my strings, my lav mic threw a tantrum, and then it would only pick up my voice very faintly. So here I am. Don't worry though, I do end up recovering the audio at the end. Until then, you're stuck with voiceover me. Anyways, you saw me react to my work in progress earlier. Nothing has changed in my attitude towards this project. I'm still in love with the armor and would wear it here or there. I would wear it everywhere. Now that I'm done channeling the ghost of Dr. Seuss, time for some critique, because although I love her just the way she is, this armor is not perfect. Number one, I do worry about rust a little bit in this. There is sweat, and I'm pretty sure that these top cookie sheets are going to be susceptible to rust. So maybe some beeswax? Number two, you also saw that my rivet holes didn't line up, and so there's a little bit of a problem with symmetry, but I would perhaps in the future drill the holes after cutting, and that would probably fix my problem. My next little bit of critique is about the leather here. The shoulder straps are rough. They are 2 bits of couch leather sewn together, and they slipped and stretched as I was sewing. So yeah, it's rough. I was in a rush because I was excited to wear the armor. Flaws aside, I do hope that the glare from the shiny metal and or the absolute confidence that oozes from my being when I wear it. Anyways, here is where I realized that my audio had cut out, and I worked to restore that, but I didn't know how much I missed.
Is it still working? I think it was not working. I don't know. I did wear the armor to the Ren Fair. I was wearing different pants and a different shirt, but it was 100% linen and 100% cotton, very flowy fabrics for my underlayers, and that helped a lot in staying cool. In fact, the part of me that overheated the most was this area. Go figure. It is a little bit like being encased in a tin can and then baking in the sun. I did have the foresight to bring a spray bottle, so I sprayed it down quite a bit, and that actually helped to cool down the metal whenever that started to feel like it was getting really hot. So it was a great time. I got some compliments, and it wasn't, other than the heat, too uncomfortable to wear this armor all day. Ultimately, wins all around. I love it. I love it. I really love it.
And speaking of love, I would really love it if you would hit that like button. That is, if you liked anything about this video. And if you would like or even love to see more of what I do, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that we can see each other again. And maybe in the next one, I won't forget how to do an outro. And it won't just be an awkward voiceover while you go ahead and put something fun in the comments. Anyways, that's all.
Bye!
No, is that some sort of sex thing or secret organization?
No, not the sex thing. There's no sex thing. My modern watch. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Is some LARP gear that I just so happen to have. Don't ask me how I got a hold of it. I won't tell you. But I did it. Just for you.
That's just the kind of work that I put in for my clients.
My detective clients.
My detective clients? I'm not a seamstress anymore. I didn't do any seamstressing for this either. Don't think I did.
You're that smolder. I don't know how to smolder. I'm not smoldery.
Today,
It's romantic, okay?
It's so romantic, okay?
by looking at how cheap the materials I am, that
Boobs.
sorry if the framing is trash in this video. Cannot see what I'm doing. Oh my goodness. It's so pretty and shiny.